Guess what? It's me again. Of course, you know who I am. I'm the old guy that gets you all upset, makes you laugh, makes you cry. Hey, radiates a lot of energy. And some of you get a buzz when I'm here. That's okay. Keep buzzing because you've got lots of time for it now. Okay. I've had some request topics, and I just wanted to mention here that if at any point you feel inclined to request a particular topic or theme that you think I might be able to put some information on, you can write it in the comment sections, or you can send it to this general email address, love@twinflame.ca, and use that one for making requests if you wish. And the topic here we're going to discuss today is, I'm going to have to rate it again here. So I get so many people sending me stuff that want to request. I can't do them all, but I can do the ones that I think really are appropriate to what's going on. Okay, I'm having multiple soul connections. They are very intense. What's happening? Okay, and this particular person had mentioned when she got a hold of me that she was having connections with 5 or 6 male persons, excuse me. And the first thing I said to her was, "Oh, lucky you." Anyways, with some further discussion with her, what I found out is basically this is going on with a lot of people now in the spiritual community, especially. And this particular one here had already connected with her supposed twin flame by her definition. And now she was having additional connections with all of these other people. And she was very confused based on the information that she had received basically in a lot of twin flame groups that, excuse me, you can only have one twin flame. And she explained to me that some of these connections were more intense than what she had felt for her twin. So it makes it even more confusing. So let's see if I can unravel this and put some common sense into it without getting caught up in all of the twin flame regalia and bullshit that's going around. So I want to throw the word here into this conversation right off the bat, and I would like everybody to think multidimensional. Everywhere you go in the spiritual community, you'll hear that term being used, that we are multidimensional beings. And then if you ask anybody, well, what does that mean? Most of them can't tell you what a multidimensional being is, much less tell you what a multidimensional state of consciousness is. So remember the word multidimensional, and then listen closely to what I'm going to say here. Each and every person, when they have an experience like this, will interpret it, define it, and react to it based on their present now today belief systems about love, relationship, and sexuality. There's no other way around it. Okay, I'm going to repeat that part. Everybody who has these types of connections going on at this particular point in time will react to it in exactly the way that their belief systems have presented themselves according to their concept of relationship, love, and sexuality. Okay, remember that part. Now let's get into this and kind of unwrap it and unravel it for the general understanding of a lot of people out there. As you know, at this particular point, the one thing that has been my belief system, if you want to call it that, for a long time, that the present state of our society, in all its form, be it positive, negative, dysfunctional, whatever, is based on one basic premise, and that is relationships. Without relationships, we have no infrastructure, we have no shopping centers, we have no consumerism, we have no structure to our society at all. What has happened is, as many of you know, the relationship concept in our reality has been formulated in many cases by a limited few, Yeah, flu. That's going around these days, isn't it? That flu. Yeah, flu thing going around. Flu thing. Yes, that flu thing that's going around that people can't figure out what it is, so they call it, I think it was called COVID-19. I think they're calling it now. I like to call it, just so I can get a chuckle, I like to call it nothing more than a horny cold sore that went mutant. How do you like that one, folks? A horny cold sore that went mutant and it mutated into what it is now. Gotta have a little humor here somewhere to get a chuckle out of something. Anyways, as I was saying, now you can pick yourself up off the floor. The one fell on the floor there. As I was saying, the relationship concept is going to change, and it's going to change during this tribulation that we're having right now, and has already started. What has happened is our society over the last while has been falling more and more and more into a state of decay, and I can relate that to what's going on now by saying to you that if you see the state of relationships and compare it with the state of health in the general population, what you can see is it's been going downhill. And yes, there's still positive, good relationships. Yes, there's no doubt about that. I'm not disputing that fact. But relationships overall have been going down into a state of decay. With that state of decay, our physical health and well-being and mental and emotional stability falls into a state of decay, which conversely will dictate state of health, which is manifesting in the immune system, which is, everything comes together, okay? I don't know why people don't see this. I don't know, I see it so easily. And everything is in that situation. So you have this thing that showed up that's going on right now, and relationship situation are going to change, literally. Because more people are spending time with their particular person that they're involved with, etc., families and everything else. So when it happens at an individual basis, again, the person has to make that decision as to how they're going to react to it. Now, for an example, some people might take this as an opportunity that they should be dating all of those people. So they would be looking at wanting to have perhaps an open relationship based on their concept of belief and realities about love, relationship, and sexuality. Everyone has to form their own concept and how they're going to react to it. And this is based on belief systems that they've incorporated, as I said, from other people who have created the concept of relationship and keep promoting it in certain ways and fashion for the, shall we say, continued manipulation and limitations placed on relationships, etc., etc. So what happens is this, is if you can remember the word multidimensional and multidimensional states of consciousness at this point, here's what I'm going to say to you, ladies and gentlemen that are out there, is you can have these connections with other people, and they can be very intense. And you've also heard me use the word transference, okay? And all of you are very much aware of how much of the feeling you can get when you go around somebody, as I've mentioned before also, and they're very negative and you go in positive and they dump all over you, and suddenly you come out and you're negative and they feel great. That's transference. The transference can take place at a much higher vibration, but in order for that to happen at the higher vibration, you have to have something take place. And you have to have, obviously, a heart center connection with someone that can feel very intense. Are you with me so far on this one? Okay. You need to understand, look, people, it is wonderful to go and sit there with all of these twin flame groups and other groups like that and listen to all that fantasy and bullcock shit to keep sprouting. Sooner or later, most of you in these intense connections and twin flame connections are going to have to learn the mechanics of these relationships coming together. You're going to have to do it, whether you like it or not, because it's going to continue to happen. So let's go back to this person who had 5 or 6 of these connections. Now, in talking to the person, she made mention that she was also having sexual connections with 2 or 3 of these connections. And she said that I believe if I remember correctly, she said 4 were men and 2 were women. And that she's having these meditation, etheric, astral, she used the word astral connections that were fulfilled with a lot of sexual activity in many different forms and fashions. So, you know, again, many people will interpret things many, many different ways. And it doesn't mean I'm right, but I just know when I'm in the ballpark kind of thing. And I said to her, I said, let me ask you a question, if I may. I said, are you the type of person that since you were a teenager, that you had problems in regards to expressing your sexuality? And of course she did a little, him-hooing and hawing kind of thing, and I had to kind of drag it out of her. And then I found out that she lived in a family that was very regressive and very negative in their expression of sexuality, and it had to have rules and inhibitions and containments and restrictions all around it based on, I'm not going to get into the religious aspect, but that was there also. So I said to her, I said, look, I said, are you having a problem with these connections when they're happening with different people? And I said, are you having these connections in the astral, as you call it, with women also besides yourself? And she said, yes, I am. And she said, I love it. It feels really, really expressive and free. And I'm having them with men, and I'm having them with men and women at the same time in meditations and also in this particular situation in a group setting. And I said, oh, lucky you. She said, yeah, Mel, but I'm feeling guilty. I said, why are you feeling guilty? I said, look, understand something. I'm talking to her now, okay? Just kind of flow with me here. I'm talking to her now and I'm saying, look, let me explain something to you. I said, you come from a background that your sexuality and your sexual energy has been restrictive and never had a chance to express. You've started your spiritual awakening, your heart center has activated, all right? And this is the process that we're all going to go through, no exceptions, okay? I don't care where anybody is actually, in fact, if they're in a loop in a twin flame group and they can't go for a poop because they're in the loop, all right? They get frustrated after a while, and I can tell you something that I've learned about spiritual people. There's a lot of spiritual people out there who are caught up in loops, okay? And in certain belief systems of spirituality, and they're constipated spiritually. Spiritual constipation is rampant in the spiritual community. So what has to happen is the intensity level of the experience and exposure that they're having has to reach a cataclysmic effect before people will act and change, like this cold sore thing I'm talking about, this horny cold sore that has mutated into something else that's taking the planet on at this particular point. So I explained to her, I said, what's happening, you have, and I told her, I said, think about multidimensional. I said, have you ever heard the word before? She said, yeah, I've heard the word. I said to her, okay, I said, look at your consciousness. Your consciousness is made up of how you are, of belief systems, innuendos, philosophies, and your emotional, mental, and your sexuality, expressions of love, consciousness, or excuse me, your expressions of love, relationship, and sexuality as they've been imprinted. So what has to happen? You take a portion of that sexuality, the masculine and feminine within yourself, and you create in your meditation or in the astral at a much higher source level experiences, exposure, and mingling and playing hide the wiener or, chasing the nunny, whatever, and you are expressing your freedom, your sexuality. Out of expressing your sexuality, you will create, because your heart center is now open and you're experiencing and letting go of the old concept, you will create with the heart center a new concept of love, a new feeling, but you cannot do that and move into multidimensionalism until you've cleaned out the old templates and the old pattern. And I said, this is why you're having all of the experience that you're having. She said, holy shit, Mel, I get it. She says, you explain it so I understand exactly what's going on. And that's what I do very well. I explain it very well, and I explain it to people simply so that they can understand what the hell I'm talking about. Okay? I mean, when you think about it, and the way I explain it to you, and some of you really like the way I explain it, you would wonder why I don't have 500,000 subscribers, right? You would wonder about that. And, you know, this is a question I've asked myself a lot of times too. However, anyways, when I explained it to her that way, she got it. And she said, now I understand. She said, a lot of my dreams also that I've been having. She said, what I'm doing is I'm unraveling. I'm getting rid of those old patterns and those old belief systems at other levels and layers of multidimensional aspects of myself so that I can become more creative and more open. That wasn't quite the way she said it, but reasonably close will do here. And I said, yeah. I said, now you got it. And I said, the one thing that I said I wanted to impress upon you is you weren't born into this world guilty. You had to be taught how to feel guilt. Guilt is not a natural component of us. Guilt is a manipulation tool. Everybody does it. Governments do it. Religions do it. Educational systems do it. And nowadays we call it shaming. Okay? When you're shaming a person, you're trying to make them feel guilty. That's what you're trying to do. So in essence, she understood what was going on. She said, well, I'm not doing anything wrong. I said, no, you're perfectly normal. I said, perfectly normal to me because I understand the mechanics of what's going on with you. But to other people, if you tell them, and I wouldn't advise you to do that, they're probably going to lock you up in a round room and throw the key away, or call you a Fruit Loop, or put you on medication and all that other crapola so that you can remain where you are. And I explained to her, I said, this is what's happening with the relationship situations. Excuse me, I have allergies going a bit. This is what's going on with the relationship situation at this particular point. And I said, now we're doing a cleanse and a purging, and all of this stuff is taking place. And this is what's happening with relationships. So she said to me, so, okay, now what you're saying to me is by going through this stuff and actually participating and stop feeling guilty, I'm eliminating those old templates at an energetic level. I said, well, let me put it another way, just so that you fully understand even more. I said to her, I said, you have within your physical body a duplicate body. I call it the etheric body. Other people call it other things. And I said, in that etheric body, there are additional bodies which I call sheath bodies, not sheet, sheath, S-H-E-A-T-H, sheath. Did I spell it right? No, I didn't. Yeah, I did. Okay, whatever. You know what I meant. Anyways, I said in that etheric body, there are 12 additional sheath bodies. We've never had access to them before. We've only used one or two of them because we were basically always functioning in relationships, love, relationship, and sexuality from the lower chakra, the dominant one being the emotional center or the solar plexus chakra. Since the Great Awakening started to take place, the heart center activation, we moved up here and now we have to deprogram all of ourselves. And she said, like, wow, man. And she said, I'm really starting to get it now. I said, good. So, and this is what takes place with this programming. Now, everyone on the planet is an individual. Each and every one of us are unique in our own way. Each one of us is special to us and to yourself, okay? So what happens is every experience that you have after the heart center awakening to get you to multi-dimensional states of consciousness, to add another factor so you can access the 12 chakra system, which represent the 12 multi-dimensional dimensions, timelines, and realities at this point, you have to go through this process. And she said, oh boy, I'm really starting to grasp it. I said, well, you know what? I said, I've been up on YouTube for, believe it or not, I said, I'm going on 12 years on YouTube. 12 years, okay? And you can see how much that people have actually listened to what I had to say. 26,000 subscribers in 12 years on YouTube. That's pretty amazing. So that gives you an indication, it gives me an indication of how much people actually listen to what I'm saying and follow through with understanding. More and more it's happening more, but this is an example. People would rather go and listen to some guy sit on a picket fence and trying to blow a flute, and he can get 500,000 views in 2 days, all right? Somebody who is actually talking sense and making sense of the mechanics of the new concept of relationships, love, and sexuality, the majority are not interested, all right? But that's going to change. So anyway, the other thing is this, is when this is happening to you, the individual, this is what you need to do. And now you've been given the opportunity to do that, is every one of you that goes through a similar experience like that, and there will be a lot of variations individually, of course, in this type of a situation. I just gave you one example to kind of explain it to you in this way, shape, and form. When you get to that point where you don't feel guilty and experiences seem natural to you and you understand the mechanics of it, then what happens is you become free. Now, what do I mean by free? Many of us here on this planet think we live in a free country, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, oh boy, after what's happening on the planet right now, a lot of you are going to be pissed off, I can tell you. So many, in fact. Anyways, another topic. So when you're doing all of this, you actually get to the point where you actually feel as though you're exercising a state of freedom. Not freedom of speech and voice and all of that, and freedom of public display and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about a sense of freedom within. There's a big difference between freedom without and freedom within. I have found, and I don't say this with any disrespect to anybody, there are very few people that are free on this planet. There are even less people in the spiritual community right now who are free, who are not riddled with dogma, tradition, belief systems that are being promoted and continuing to be promoted, who can even think for themselves, because in thinking for themselves, all they can do is react to the belief systems that they've taken place, which is why when I explained this to this young lady, she said to me afterwards, she said, well, am I ever going to be in a position where I'm actually going to really have a sound relationship? And I said, yes, you are. I said, this is exactly why we need to spend more time understanding the mechanics of these relationship concepts and what's going on at this particular point, simply because so that we can reach that point of inner freedom to be able to create, make a mistake or a learning curve, and go and do it. So she said to me, she said, well, no, okay. She said, I get it with the sexuality part, and I'm having this with like 2 or 3 of them. But there's a couple of them in there also, that there is no sexuality thing going on, okay? And I said, fine. I said, well, what's happening? And she says, well, she said, with one, she said, I'm getting into these interesting conversations, and some of them are getting pretty intense. And I said to her, I said, okay, let me ask you a question. Are you, besides the fact that you had this, shall we say, restricted sexuality and sexual expression of self, I said, are you kind of a shy person? And you really kind of, because of your family life, kind of reclusive and kind of an introvert? Well, she said, yeah, now that you mention it, she said, I really don't, function that well in society. And she says, I have a hard problem speaking to people. Again, for me, it was easy to figure out just by, taking a look and talking to her. One of the things I'm able to do is kind of, how can you call it a gift you want other people have? I'm not the only one. When somebody's talking, I'm able to bypass the words that they're saying. I mean, I'm listening, but bypass the words they're saying, and I'm actually able to feel, if the appropriate word, where they're coming from by energy, vibration. I don't know how I do that, but I know where they are and where they're coming from. So anyway, I said, okay, you're going into a multidimensional state of consciousness where you're going to be free. Besides the sexuality part of it, I said, what's the other part that's happening here in the dream state? She said, well, A lot of times what's happening in the dream state when I get into a conversation with this guy, she said, we get into a fight and she says, the damn dream will start all over again and I see where I made my mistake and I have to go back and I have to do it again. And I said, this is to facilitate your communication skills with individuals in the dream state. And the other part of it here is that I told her, I said, look, there is a certain part of the heart center awakening that gets you to formulate something that's this. And this is very important, people. Please pay attention to this. When the heart center opens, okay, at some point, what happens is the imaginative faculty, which everybody has, becomes enhanced or it's vivified or it's intensified. So you need to understand, every one of you that listens to the video, that the imaginative faculty and the heart center chakra work in combination. It's a multi-dimensional combo, if you will. And soon as all of the training exercises, the modifications, the experiences that happen as you go through them in the dream state, what happens is the imaginative faculty and the heart center chakra begin to start working together. And that's when you become creative. But you can't become creative until you're free within yourself of all of the old restrictions and whatever else that went along. And she said, oh, wow. She said, okay. She said, you know what? She said, I think I'm onto something here. And she said, you know what? I think, Mel, I understand why you have so much fun. And I said, oh, yeah, why's that? And she said, because you spend more time discovering who you are, but you do it from a state of freedom within yourself. I said, Eureka, shit, you got it. I said, most people out there don't do that. They don't do that. Even the spiritual community, a lot of them don't do that. I know there are people that do it, but there's a lot of people that don't. They don't know how. They haven't got it yet. So it looks like I got to stick around for a few more years yet to kind of kick some people in the ass or get them going, kind of thing. I don't mind kicking people in the ass. I don't mind if they try to kick me in the ass too, but it doesn't do any good. So, whatever. So anyways, when we got finished the conversation, I could tell by her voice vibration that she felt different about the whole thing. She said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to spend some time with me and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to get a paper and a pen or do it on the computer. And she says, I'm going to come up with my own particular concept of what I think love really is. And I said, exactly what I did 35, 40 years ago. And I said, every 6 months after that, I probably changed it a little bit and modified it. I said, that's what being free is all about. Because when you get free like that inside, and you radiate that energy outward, then what comes toward you is different. And she says, oh, okay. So she said, if I'm looking for a relationship that I could call a union or a twin flame, if you want, or a soul mate, or a divine partner, or a split apart, whatever you want to call them, she said, what I have to do is create it within me, first of all, by achieving the sense of freedom to discover who the hell I am. And when I'm doing that with the idea that I'm having fun doing this, that's the right vibration for co-creation. I said, now we're cooking. Anyways, to make this video short, again, I'm going to leave it there because I've probably got your mind stimulated or I've got you pissed off, one of the two. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to leave it there for all of you to think about, okay? And the idea here is this. As you go within and you free yourself from the chains that bind you, you will go through a period of wailing and gnashing of teeth. You will. But when it's all said and done, all the seals will open. And you can become a candle in the wind. How's that grab it?